Final Awakening by Munster Adams. The room, bathed in jaundiced lamplight, felt as though it was decaying from within. The walls themselves seemed to wilt in the presence of the figure lying on the bed. Helene, with her flesh stretched thin over brittle bones, a fragile skeleton held together by sinew and faintly pulsing veins. Her body, once filled with life and laughter, was now a monument to all things hollowed, a temple dedicated to the ravages of time and a disease that devoured memory, voice, and motion, reducing her to a husk, a whisper of who she'd once been. Gerald sat by her side, his hand clasping hers, and in that moment he could feel the slow, laboring pulse against his skin, a rhythm struggling against the encroaching dark. Her breaths were little more than broken rasps, like the final notes of a song that had once been beautiful but now stuttered towards silence. His love was still there, buried beneath years of exhaustion, pity, and reluctant yearning for the end that would free her from her prison of flesh. As he watched, he felt something, a flicker of movement, a whisper of life that hadn't been there moments before. Her fingers curled, a faint but deliberate tightening around his hand. The muscles under her paper-thin skin seemed to stir, and her eyes, oh, those eyes, opened. The dark, cavernous pupils swallowed him whole, pulling him into something vast and unknowable. Gone was any semblance of warmth or recognition, replaced by a bleak hunger, an abyss where humanity had once resided. He barely had time to react before her grip grew impossibly strong, her fingers pressing into the sinew and bone of his hand with a force that should not have existed in her skeletal form. It was as though something ancient, something furious, had found a vessel within her withered frame, a power that surged through her like a raw and terrible flame. "Helene!" he choked out, voice faltering as he gazed into those fathomless eyes, hoping to glimpse the woman he'd loved. But her expression was a mask of emptiness, her mouth twisted open in a silent scream, lips pulled taut of the teeth that gleamed in the dim light. She rose, her body moving with the unnatural fluidity of a puppet's jerky dance, her frail form animated by an energy so foreign, so malevolent, that Gerald felt the ice-cold tendrils of fear coil around his heart. With a swift, horrific movement, her other hand shot out, wrapping around his throat. The grip was not of his Helene, but of something else, something old and ravenous that had crawled from the pit of her subconscious, woken by death's proximity. Her fingers, bony talons now, dug into his neck, pressing into the soft skin as if to strip away his very essence. He struggled, clawing at her arms, gasping as her grip tightened. She was relentless, her skeletal hands powered by a strength that defied reason, driven by something primal, something that transcended love or hate, a hunger, an anger born from the void that had consumed her mind. His vision blurred, the edges of the room closing in, shadows converging like vultures as he felt his life slipping away, stolen by the woman he had once held dear. And in those final moments, as his consciousness drifted on the cusp of oblivion, he saw a flicker in her eyes, a faint glimmer of the Helene he'd known. It was there, a shard of her soul struggling against the darkness that had taken hold. But it was too late. Her grip loosened, but only as his own strength ebbed, and he felt himself fading, his last sight that of her face softening, her breath slowing, the fury dissipating as swiftly as it had come. When they found them in the dawn's first light, Helene's hand still rested upon his throat, a ghostly touch, gentle now, yet bearing the indelible mark of violence. She lay beside him, eyes closed, her features serene, as if she had drifted into death's embrace with the calm of a lover's sleep. They would never understand, those who found them, what had taken place in that room. They would see only the frail corpse of a woman whose disease had claimed her at last, beside the man who who had loved her to his end. And they would never hear the final, silent scream that lingered in the air, a lover's last touch twisted by forces beyond death, beyond life, a fury and a hunger that none could name.